The summer air at Suncrest Lane was thick with the scent of chlorine and anticipation as the sun dipped low behind neatly trimmed hedges. I had spent the better part of the day preparing my backyard for a pool party that promised to be anything but ordinary. Invitations had gone out to a mixed crowd: old friends, neighbors with colorful histories, and even a few acquaintances who, like me, craved a taste of youthful rebellion amid the routine of suburban life. I wasn't expecting drama, but life in a well-manicured neighborhood is rarely free of surprises. Among the guests was Officer James Jim Lawson, a longtime friend who had once shared a dorm room with me and who now patrolled our community with a steady hand and a surprisingly gentle demeanor. Jim was not just a badge. He was a trusted confidant, a man who had seen his share of life's complexities and whose moral compass often pointed true north. As twilight settled, laughter and lively chatter blended with the soft splash of water, creating an atmosphere of carefree abandon. However, not all was calm. Karen, yes, that Karen, the perennial critic of the neighborhood's moral decay, watched from behind drawn curtains. Known for her unwavering commitment to rules and a penchant for stirring trouble, Karen had made it her personal mission to preserve order at all costs. I'd heard whispers that she'd even dialed the HOA cops more than once in the past. And tonight, her eyes burned with a mix of indignation and determination as she took in the scene. Music thumping just a little too loud, people laughing too freely, and water splashing with an abandon that defied her idea of decency. I tried to ignore the tension that crept into the margins of our celebration. After all, a pool party was supposed to be a joyous occasion, a brief escape from the everyday burdens of responsibilities and routine. I reminded myself that life was too short to get bogged down by petty grievances. Still, a nagging thought persisted. Could this night spiral into chaos? As the evening progressed, it wasn't long before Karen's discontent manifested into action. I spotted her furtively dialing a number, her eyes darting back and forth between our party and the silent line of houses behind her. The realization hit me like a cold splash. Karen was calling the HOA cops. My heart sank, and a mix of anticipation and dread churned in my gut. At that moment, the serene hum of our summer escape threatened to erupt into a full-blown confrontation between tradition and the liberating spirit of community celebration. The stage was set for an encounter that would force every one of us to confront our assumptions about authority, friendship, and the boundaries we set for ourselves. As I glanced around, I wondered who would side with whom in the ensuing drama. And then, like a beacon of calm in the brewing storm, Jim, ever the mediator, stepped forward with a gentle smile and a reassuring nod. His presence hinted at the possibility that tonight's challenges might be met not with brute enforcement, but with understanding and compromise. The pool reflected the shimmering lights of makeshift lanterns, and for a moment, time seemed to hold its breath. I knew we were about to embark on a journey through misunderstanding, stubborn pride, and surprising revelations, a journey where even the most unyielding rules might bend under the weight of friendship and shared humanity. Stay tuned as the night unfolds in unexpected ways, because sometimes the person you least expect to be your ally ends up being the key to unlocking the heart of the neighborhood. The shrill ring of a phone sliced through the hum of conversation, and suddenly, our little oasis of summer rebellion was jolted into stark reality. Karen's call to the HOA cops had been made, and within minutes, the quiet thump of approaching footsteps disrupted our party's rhythm. The atmosphere shifted from one of festive defiance to an uneasy anticipation of the unknown. Jim, ever the calm amid the storm, motioned for me to follow him away from the glaring eyes of the assembled guests. "We'll handle this," he assured in a low tone, his voice a blend of duty and personal loyalty. I followed him along a side path, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on my shoulders. It wasn't just about a pool party anymore. It was about preserving the tenuous balance between free expression and the strict codes that some neighbors lived by. As we reached a quieter part of the property, Jim's phone buzzed with an incoming message, an alert from the HOA enforcement unit. "They're on their way," he murmured, his brow furrowing. I glanced back toward the pool, where Karen's silhouette could be seen framed by the glow of a porch light, her expression rigid with self-righteous determination. What started as a casual evening had now become the stage for a classic confrontation, a tale of modern suburban strife, laden with personal vendettas and the complexities of community living. Inside my mind, conflicting thoughts raced. Should I defend the right to celebrate life freely, or should I attempt to placate the rigid sensibilities of our more conservative neighbors? I recalled the countless HOA meetings where Karen had paraded her better way of living, her voice echoing through sterile conference rooms as she recited rules that seemed to suffocate any hint of spontaneity. Tonight, however, that very rigidity was about to be challenged. Back at the party, murmurs began to spread among our guests. A few whispered that Karen might be aiming for more than just a complaint. Perhaps she had a personal score to settle. Others speculated if this was just another misguided attempt at upholding outdated norms. I could see a mixture of amusement and apprehension in their eyes. After all, this was a night when the line between neighborly concern and overzealous control had become hilariously blurred. As the sound of approaching footsteps grew louder, Jim's calm demeanor began to show signs of strain. His internal conflict was palpable. Here was a man torn between his duty as an officer and his loyalty as a friend. With every step the HOA officer took toward our gathering, the pressure mounted, not just on the party's future, but on the fragile equilibrium of our community. Would the officer enforce the rules to the letter, or would he recognize that sometimes a little rule-bending was what made life worth celebrating? In the distance, the sound of a car engine idled, a vehicle with the unmistakable markings of the HOA patrol rolling slowly toward our property. I could feel my pulse quicken, each heartbeat a reminder that the next moments might change the fabric of our little neighborhood forever. As Jim's eyes met mine, a silent promise was made. He would do what he believed was right, even if it meant defying convention. And then, just as the tension reached its peak, a twist rippled through the air, a subtle shift that would leave us all reeling with the implications of the night's unfolding drama. What would happen when authority collided with camaraderie? Could an officer, bound by duty, choose a path that honored the spirit of community? The answers were as murky as the depths of my pool on a starlit night, leaving us on the precipice of a revelation that would test our very notions of justice and friendship. The night had taken on a surreal quality, where the ordinary rules of suburban life clashed with the unanticipated loyalties that bound us together. The car door opened and out stepped an officer whose uniform bore the unmistakable badge of the HOA enforcement team, Officer Daniels. To everyone's surprise, he was not an unknown enforcer of draconian rules, but a face familiar to many of us. Jim's old college buddy, Daniels had once been a partner in mischief during our youthful escapades. Now he stood at the crossroads of obligation and personal history. As Daniels stepped forward, a hush fell over the party. His presence seemed to suspend the inevitable collision between Karen's rigid principles and the joyful chaos of our celebration. His eyes scanned the scene with a measured calm. He wasn't here as an antagonist, but as a mediator. I watched as Jim and Daniels exchanged a look that spoke volumes of shared memories and unspoken understandings. In that brief moment, the party's fate hung in the balance between the stern hand of authority and the forgiving nature of long-standing friendships. Karen, emboldened by her belief in the sanctity of neighborhood order, took a step forward. "Officer Daniels, isn't it your duty to enforce these HOA guidelines?" she demanded, her voice trembling with a mixture of anger and self-righteous conviction. Daniels paused, his gaze softening as he regarded her. "Miss Peterson, I believe you and I both want what's best for our community," he replied, choosing his words carefully. "Tonight, however, it seems we have a situation that calls for a bit more understanding than mere rule enforcement." A murmur ran through the assembled crowd. Some faces lit up with relief at Daniel's measured response, while others, hardened by years of strict adherence to the rules, frowned in disapproval. The tension was palpable. Daniels then turned to Jim, his voice a whisper meant only for his old friend. "I know this isn't what we planned for tonight. I'm caught between two worlds here, my duty to the HOA and the loyalty I owe my friends." His admission, quiet yet profound, sent ripples through our group. It was a confession of vulnerability from a man expected to be impervious to personal bias. As the dialogue continued, memories of past neighborhood conflicts flicker in our minds, a montage of petty squabbles over lawn aesthetics, noise complaints that escalated into full-blown standoffs, and the silent grudges that had long divided our community. This wasn't just about a pool party. It was a microcosm of the deeper struggles that simmer beneath the surface of suburban life. Daniel's internal conflict echoed in the rustling leaves and the soft lapping of pool water, as if nature itself was aware of the monumental choice he had to make. In a surprising twist, Daniels suggested a compromise. "Let's have a community meeting right here, under the stars, where we can discuss our concerns openly. Tonight, I'm not here to shut down your party, but to ensure we all move forward together." His proposal was met with a mixture of skeptical glances and hopeful smiles. Karen's expression hardened momentarily before she hesitated, caught off guard by a solution that wasn't rooted in punitive measures. Jim placed a reassuring hand on my shoulder as the mood shifted from impending confrontation to cautious dialogue. Yet, just as we began to breathe a collective sigh of tentative relief, an unexpected phone call on Daniel's radio cut through the calm. His eyes widened as he listened intently to the dispatch, a reminder that even in moments of unity, the forces of bureaucracy and protocol never truly rest. "We need to address an emergency at another location, Officer Daniels," he announced, his tone conflicted. In that instant, the fragile bridge of compromise threatened to collapse, leaving the community teetering on the edge of resolution and renewed discord. Before anyone could react further, Daniels' radio crackled with a final message that promised more surprises yet to come. Would the delicate balance he had striven to create be shattered by obligations beyond his control? Or could this unforeseen interruption become the catalyst for a deeper understanding among us all? The night was far from over, and as uncertainty loomed, we were left with more questions than answers. In the wake of that unexpected radio call, the atmosphere around our pool took on an eerie quiet. Daniels' face, lit by the soft glow of poolside lanterns, was etched with both regret and determination. "I must attend to this emergency," he announced, his voice heavy with the weight of his duty. The community collectively held its breath as he turned to leave, leaving behind a moment suspended between relief and unresolved tension. Yet even as he departed, the evening's dialogue had already set something in motion. Karen, whose earlier defiance had been as rigid as concrete, found herself unexpectedly disarmed. For a long moment, she stared at the shimmering water of the pool, as if seeing it for the first time, not as a symbol of unruly behavior, but as a gathering point for shared stories and long-forgotten laughter. A murmur of realization passed among the guests. In her eyes flickered the spark of vulnerability, a hint that perhaps her crusade for order was born from deeper insecurities about change and the loss of community spirit. Jim stepped forward, his presence steadying the wavering hope in the crowd. "We're more than just a collection of houses," he reminded everyone, his tone resonant with experience and compassion. "We're a community, flawed, unpredictable, and capable of growth if we let go of our grudges." His words seemed to reverberate against the quiet night, drawing reluctant nods from even the most skeptical onlookers. It was a call to reconcile differences, to see that the heart of our neighborhood beat not in strict adherence to rules, but in our collective willingness to understand each other. As the guests slowly gathered in a loose circle by the pool, a spontaneous idea began to take shape. I suggested that we turn this moment of near crisis into an opportunity, a community forum right here, where every voice could be heard without judgment or the shadow of authority. "Let's share our stories," I urged, "our struggles and our dreams. Let tonight be the start of a conversation that transcends our differences." There was a palpable shift as even Karen's hardened expression softened, the prospect of being truly heard resonating in her eyes. The makeshift forum quickly transformed into an impromptu celebration of honest dialogue. Stories of lost loves, missed opportunities, and the relentless march of time flowed as freely as the water from the pool's fountain. Old neighbors recounted decades of shared memories, while younger ones admitted that perhaps they'd underestimated the wisdom of those who'd walked these streets before. The barriers between us began to dissolve, replaced by a renewed sense of community spirit. Yet, as the night wore on and the first hints of dawn colored the horizon, one lingering mystery remained. Daniels' abrupt departure had left a question unanswered. Would he return to help guide our newfound unity, or would his duty at the other emergency forever redefine the boundaries between friendship and obligation? In the quiet moments before sunrise, as we exchanged uncertain glances and hopeful smiles, the answer seemed to hover just beyond reach, a promise of more to come in a neighborhood forever changed by one fateful pool party. If this tale of unexpected alliances and the power of genuine dialogue resonates with you, share your thoughts and keep the conversation going. Sometimes, it's in the messy, unplanned moments that we find the true heart of our community. Stay curious, stay connected, and let your voice be heard.